Hello guys, welcome back to Movie Reviews for the penultimate episode of S17. And today we're talking about two documentaries to do with post-punk, interestingly. And yeah, let's not be around the bush. Let's do this. So the first documentary we're going to talk about is The Public Image of Rotten from 2017. Directed by Tabitha Filler, who basically is a Mexican camera operator, cinematographer type thing. So it's probably his first directing role. Something like that, as a director for this, really. So, which is quite interesting, very much so. So this is a documentary about Public Image Limited. Was more to do with John Lydon mainly, but his time in Pill, really, after the breakup of the Sex Pistols in 1978. So interesting enough, I might just talk about how we're going to Pill, really, because I'm a bit of a fan of theirs, really. Enjoy the music and everything else. So when I must be about 14 or 15 when I first knew about Public Image Limited from VH1 back in the day. The music videos Rise. I enjoy the video, but I kept kept something getting back in my mind saying, I recognise that person. And it dawned on me there was John Lydon, aka Johnny Rotten. It was, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. So try and also just look into what was this band, Public Image Limited. One of the early ones I can remember, I think, at the time was, in terms of music I remember getting from, early days actually, might have been the greatest hits so far from 1990, off of iTunes really, but also Plastic Box, the 4-disc edition that came out originally from, I think mine's a 2009 reissue, but it focuses on it chronologically goes from 1978 to 1992. You have more full album stuff and less album stuff as much, really, but it's an interesting thing. If you want, you might just, you do have all the hits on it and stuff, really. So it's a compilation, but also of deeper cuts, rarities and stuff on it as well. BBC sessions. It's pretty good actually, really good thing to get into actually. So you got to look a bit, it's quite worth it to get that. Mainly, obviously, subsequent then they've reunited. They've done about 3 albums so far actually. This is Pill, What the World Means Now, and End of World. I think End of the World or End of World. I think it is. Yeah. So this goes into what John Lydon was doing with Pill, really, from his time. Again, after the Sex Pistols broke up in San Francisco in 1978. It goes through the journey it does, how he got stuff together, acquiring Keith Levine, Jar Wobble, and also Jim Walker as well. And obviously other band members as well. And there's some very good interviews as well, like in terms of people like Jar Wobble's interviewed on here. Jim Walker's interviewed on this as well, interestingly. Martin Atkins is interviewed as well. Bits of interesting stuff there. There's some archive footage, but made from that post-punk documentary with Keith Levine on it, actually, which you can definitely tell, really. So on there, who else is on there? Sam Mosler, who actually played with them one time, actually, who manned of that infamous show in New York when they mimed Flowers of Romance. They did. It's just Lydon, Levine, and this drummer called Sam Mosler, who actually, I think at the time he was in his 60s. Well, I don't know actually, probably, I don't know, 50s, 60s. He's a bit of a again, a jazz drummer, but a teacher as well. And obviously, got the gear, the whole thing went, You've also got other people like Lou Edmonds, Bruce Smith, Alan Diaz as well is on it as well. Scott Firth as well, who's a current bass player in current version lineup of the band. And other people like people like First and More from Sonic Youth, Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who originally auditioned to be in the band in about 1984, interestingly. And obviously, with him being the Chili Peppers, he bowed out. and that sort of thing. So there's interesting stuff on there. So he was nearly in Pill, he was, and obviously it's something, I think it's safe sort of regretted a little bit really, but you know, with his old friends like Halal and Anthony Kiedis, yeah, I can imagine really, you know, sticking to the Chili Peppers. Interesting stuff. There's also others. I mean, that's one thing actually. You know, like with history, you've also got some other stuff that's you know, kind of, you know, sort of like you didn't really know about. It's like, oh, okay, stuff like the whole thing with Jar Wobble and I think it's Stuart Bill Price actually. You know, like, you know, they never worked with, you know, worked in Wessex Sound Studios like they did with Nevermind the Bollocks really. All because I think he didn't give Wobble respect and obviously punched him really. It's a different type of take really. Well, Levine and Wobble weren't getting on, that sort of thing, and also you could see where Levine was going from, especially when we get to the 80s period, in the early 80s in New York with Commercial Zone. Very much so. You've also, you know, another bits and pieces like you with the whole thing with Bill Laswell and the album from A6. You know, that many people actually with Spencer Lyndon actually want to work with him. You know, and Ginger Baker's even interviewed on that as well. He, you know, and that sort of thing. Some nice recalls. I mean, yeah, interesting. It does gloss over some bits, really. You know, towards the later part, especially like with, you know, especially in the early 90s, really get a little bit, maybe like a little bit of that sort of thing. Really, with Alan Deere saying about partying and drug addiction, which he had at the time, which he got replaced. You know, it's interesting actually. There's no other interviews from other people, really. You know, from like Richard Dolinsky, who was briefly touring with Pill, who was in the One-on-Oneers, of course. He's still alive. I don't think else. Really, Mike Joyce, who was the drummer in the night two in 1992 for the That Was Not tour. Who else? I'm trying to think. Maybe Ted Chow actually. I don't know if he was still around. You know, there's all these sort of things really that never, you know, you know, it delves into more of the early stuff, and when it gets down to the 80s, it sort of drifts apart really. Then it sort of picks up again with, well, just about where it's reunion really. And yeah, well, it's a fantastic documentary. It's the one that they need, mainly because Pill never had one, particularly. You know, yeah, they've been in documentaries before, like Post from Britannia and stuff, really. You know, which you know, about skirting over stuff like that, bits and pieces like his form, his public image, and obviously stuff like Mailbox and Def Disco on Top of the Pops, really. But yeah, not a full documentary like the Sex Pistols, which had two documentaries. Well, one film, Great Rockwell Swindle, Malcolm's glorified fantasy piece, whatever you call it. Feel for the Fury, which is again more documentary with shadowed interviews and archive footage and good music and good soundtrack. And Pistol, the Disney Plus series that came out a few years ago. So, and also Sid and Nancy as well in A6. So there's all this sort of thing. Like the Sex Pistols have, like, you know, that sort of thing. Pill doesn't really, interestingly, but it's one of those things really. You can't really do like a John Lydon autobiography really, in a way. I mean, you wouldn't prove it anyway. You know, he's written all autobiographies before, but there we go. But it was a really good, really nice, very good time actually. And again, you can watch on YouTube actually. It's still there. If you're interested in that sort of thing, go and watch it. There we go. And now we move on to the next one actually, which is The Go-Go's from 2020. This is a Showtime film. This was focused on the band The Go-Go's. Made famously because you got Belinda Carlisle as the lead singer, and you got Jaden Wheelman on the guitar, and also people like Kathy Valentine as well on it. Yeah, it's The Go-Go's, girl pop, what do you call it? Like a pop rock group, post-punk. We'll come with the post-punk era in the late 70s, really, and it sort of chronicles their time as a band when they sort of disbanded in the mid 80s, about 84, and then reunited a few times here and there, really. And also reunited for this film, really, for interviews, mostly. The Go-Go story is quite an interesting one, really, because, you know, again, you know, these are like, you know, kids from California, you know, probably, you know, like sort of awkward cheerleaders in school, like, you know, sort of might say have like a decent daily career, and then you come on to like the whole thing about them entering the sort of LA punk scene, you know, and you know, seeing what Belinda Carlisle looked like in the time actually as a punk, you know, wearing, you know, a bit dumpy fishnets and, you know, trash bag dresses and stuff. Interesting, you know, quite interesting side that is. And also how the build up to it, how stuff like we've got the beat, our lips are sealed, came along, that sort of thing, and it's interesting. And as it continues on, you get into the whole thing about them being successful, drug addiction, and basically, you know, the fallout of it. Really, how they sort of continue after that. The whole thing with the John and Gina having surgery on her heart, of course, at the time, and what's been in the sort of early 80s, and say, "Oh, we're going to go to holiday. We'll have a local cocaine and mushrooms and everything else, that sort of thing." You know, just to get away from all, mainly. But it's fun. It's a good one actually. It's a good one actually. You know, again, it's good music. It's also discovers like a band like that really. You know, it's like again like stuff like, you know, Behind the Music by VH1, similar to that thing really. So it goes into depth, but it's from their own perspective really, and other people around them who actually perform at the time, managers, all sorts. People like Stuart Copeland as well, because obviously his brother Miles managed him or had involvement with him at some point, you know, at the time really. And yeah, so it's one of them things really. I first watched it on YouTube actually, and then subsequently it's been gone. It's probably on streaming site somewhere, obviously. But yeah, because I was aware, I was not very much aware of the Go-Go's. I was aware of Jane Wilman and Belinda Carlisle's solo work mainly. You just see on the 80s compilations back at the time on the CD, probably a song on like that, like Rush Hour. Heaven is the Place on Earth, you know, all this stuff. And yeah, and actually seeing the roots before they had sort of like mainstream single pop careers, it was just one of those things, really, mainly so. And yeah, I enjoy Force. I have the debut album. I do somewhere back in this wardrobe here in my vinyl archive. I do, yes, I do, and yeah, very good stuff. You know, and also through the version of the albums, stuff like Vacation, which was a song that Kathy Valentine had in a previous band of his before the Go-Go's, and also became a bit of a hit for them, mainly. I mean, with Our Lips Are Sealed, it was basically around the time when the Specials were touring with them, actually, and the whole thing was Stiff Records, actually, which also got brought up in that Madness docu-series that did before they were. I think that's what it's called. When they toured around America and stuff like, you know, saxophonist Lee and guitarist Chris end up in Carlisle's hotel room, whatever. Obviously, Lee had bad gas, and obviously, you know, never, you know, wasn't again near them again, really. So, all near Lee, and yeah, it's you know, it's all does that thing, the whole thing with Jane and Terry, Terry Hall of the Specials, you know, ran to each other, and writing lyrics and stuff, or sending lyrics to each other, that sort of thing, you know. And you know, Terry Hall would use that on Fun Boy Free. Jane Wilden would use that on Go-Go's, really, and yeah. It's that thing, really. You know, there's some interesting stories on it. So, you know, it does that really. So it's interesting. It's an interesting watch, really, if you can check it out. So yes, I've talked about the Public Images Rotten from 2017 and the Go-Go's from 2020. Thank you guys for watching. See you for the next video.